Okay, so this is part 2 of the partner selection and marriage lecture. We're going to start where we left off, and this is talking about personal qualities of potential partners. And so physical attractiveness is one aspect, and this is especially important at early stages of the relationship, so especially in attracting a partner or being attracted to someone. And kind of as you saw in the video, knowing certain things about a partner or potential partner can make them seem more or less attractive. There's also something called the halo effect, and this is where we tend to attribute positive qualities to more attractive individuals. And so attractiveness may be influenced by several specific traits. So for example, someone that is perceived as attractive due in part to physical traits may be more likely to be perceived as kind or intelligent. The role of attractiveness in producing the halo effect has also been illustrated through a number of studies. For example, some studies have revealed that attractiveness may affect perceptions tied to life success and personality, or trustworthiness and friendliness. So people perceived as being more attractive were more likely to be perceived as successful, as having a great personality, as being trustworthy, and as being friendly. And so being attractive kind of affords you with people giving you the benefit of the doubt and assuming other good qualities about you. But as we saw in the video too, people knowing, especially for men, if women know that you may be higher status, such as being well educated, making a lot of money, that can actually influence you being perceived as more attractive as well. In cross-cultural studies, there's one study that surveyed 10,000 men and women from 37 different countries to identify the most desired traits in a potential mate. The preferences for the top 4 characteristics by men and women were identical, and these were mutual love, or mutual attraction, or love, having a dependable character, emotional stability and maturity. And this is things like, being composed, being able to withstand minor setbacks without completely falling apart, things like that. And number 4 is a pleasing disposition, which is things like kind, sweet, lovable. So again, the top 4 characteristics preferred by men and women were mutual attraction or love, dependable character, emotional stability / maturity, and a pleasing disposition. There were some sex differences. So for example, men favored good looks, whereas women tend to favor ambition or economic potential. Your book talks a little bit about there being cultural differences as well. So for example, some cultures, there are also other traits that people prefer. So for example, in China, filial piety, or respect or care for your parents, was another highly preferred or valued trait, one that wasn't ranked as high a priority as by people in the United States. So now we're going to talk about interracial or intercultural dating or marriage. So the frequency of occurrence of interracial or intercultural dating or marriage actually varies by ethnic group. So a small but growing percentage of American marriages are interracial or interethnic. A record of about 15% of all new marriages in the United States in 2010 were between spouses of a different race or ethnicity from one another. And this is actually more than double the share since 1980, which was about 6.7% of new marriages. So, but like I said, the frequency of occurrence of intermarriage varies by ethnic group. So, among all newlyweds in 2010, 9% of white individuals, 17% of African American individuals, 26% of Hispanics, and 28% of Asians married outside of their ethnic group. So that was 9% of whites, 17% of African Americans, 26% of Hispanics, and 28% of Asians married someone outside their ethnic group. And so when we look at all married couples in 2010, regardless of when they got married, the share of intermarriages has actually reached an all-time high. And this rate is about 8.4% of married individuals are in an interracial or interethnic marriage. And so the 15% that I told you about before, that was for just individuals who were married in 2010. But 8.4% of all married individuals are in interethnic or interracial relationships. And again, that's also increased from the past. So in 1980, there was only 3.2% of married individuals were in interracial or interethnic marriages. There are some gender variations in rates of interracial dating or marriage. And these gender patterns are vary widely. So about 24% of all Black male newlyweds in 2010 married outside their race. And this is compared with just 9% of Black female newlyweds. So for African Americans, males tend to marry outside of their race more than females. However, among Asians, that gender pattern tends to run the other way. So about 36% of Asian female newlyweds married outside their race in 2010, compared with just 17% of Asian male newlyweds. And so for Asians, Asian women tend to marry interracially or interethnically more than Asian men. However, for whites and Hispanics, intermarriage rates tend not to vary by gender. There are also some regional differences in the United States. And so interracial or interethnic marriages tend to be more common in the western part of the United States. So about 1 in 5, or about 22% of all newlyweds in western states married someone of a different race or ethnicity between 2008 and 2010. And this is compared with 14% in the South, 13% in the Northeast, and 11% in the Midwest. So again, the western part of the United States tends to be, tends to have intermarriage or interracial or interethnic marriages is more common. So of newlyweds today, the most common married couple union is between Latinos and white individuals, and that accounts for about 41% of intermarriages. Between African American and white individuals is actually the least common, and that accounts for about 11% of intermarriages. Marriages between Asian and white individuals is about 15%, whereas if both partners are non-white but of different ethnicities, that accounts for about 16% of interracial or interethnic marriages. So there are some varying attitudes surrounding interracial dating. In a 2009 Pew survey, most Americans say they approve of interracial or interethnic dating relationships, and a majority, or about 63%, said it would be fine with them if a family member married outside their racial or ethnic group. However, in 1986, the public was a bit more divided about this. So nearly 3 in 10 Americans, 28%, said people of different races marrying each other was not acceptable for anyone. And an additional 37% said this may be acceptable for others, but not for themselves. Only 1/3 of the public, 33%, viewed intermarriage as acceptable for everyone. So as you can see, attitudes about interracial dating or interracial relationships and marriage have changed over time and become more supportive of these relationships. So who is most likely to marry outside their race or ethnic group? This is most common to marry outside your race or ethnic group are individuals who attended college, were born in the United States as opposed to another country, are in their early 30s, who have been previously married, who live in urban areas or west of the Mississippi. Also, individuals who marry outside their ethnic groups tend to describe themselves as more self-confident, autonomous, and immune to what others think. So this is important and you should know this, so I'll say it again. Who is most likely to marry outside their race or ethnic group? So most common to marry outside your race or ethnic group are individuals who 1. Attended college, 2. Were born in the United States as opposed to another country, 3. Are in their early 30s, 4. Who have been previously married, and 5. Who live in urban areas or west of the Mississippi. So currently, racially or ethnically mixed couples are more likely on average to get divorced than those couples of similar ethnic backgrounds. However, as interracial or interethnic marriage becomes more common, we expect this trend to be reduced. So the story about the increased likelihood for divorce among racially or ethnically mixed couples is really about the extent to which couples are similar and different in the additional domains that affect relationships. And so I'm going to also talk about some factors related to marital success among interracial couples. And I think I'll do that in part 3 because I don't want this to be like a super long video. So I think we'll do part 3 for factors related to marital success.